to The Career Track by Climate Connect, a series where we explore the journeys of the people building careers in the climate space. I am Magdi, your host for today, and I welcome you all for this episode. It brings me immense pleasure to introduce you with our guest today. Today we have with us Maitreya, an environmental lawyer and a reporter at Land Conflict Watch. He has been involved in numerous environmental litigations with Supreme Court, National Green Tribunal, and has also worked as a researcher at multiple think tanks and NGOs. Maitreya, thank you so much for joining in today. I'm really excited to have conversations with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Magdi.
So, before we begin, can we just have a short introduction of yourself in simple terms for audiences, like what you currently do, what work are you involved in?
So essentially, I'm an environmental lawyer. My work involves pro-conservation litigation entirely. So what that means is basically I work with communities, I work with farmers, I work with fishermen, I work with housing societies, I work with project affected people, all of whom are trying to access environmental justice in one way or the other. I work across different ecosystems, so forests, lakes, rivers, coastal areas, mangroves, hills, urban ecology, all of it, trying to address the issues of pollution, address issues of environmental degradation, trying to address issues of adequate compensation and relief to victims of environmental pollution or industrial pollution in some way, trying to address, how we can restore places that have been damaged because of industrial activity, because of governmental projects, because of years of neglect and oversight. That is primarily what my work involves. It involves trying to help me being a lawyer, trying to help people access environmental justice and try to uphold the environmental rule of law. That's really, you know, the sort of, in a nutshell, that's what it is. But what it really involves is a lot more than just these broad terms like environmental justice. What it involves is going to people, trying to figure out really what their problems are, trying to frame those problems in ways in which they fit within, the definitions of the laws, and then trying to take that to court in the hopes that the judges will grant us something, they'll give us some relief, they'll order something that really will then get implemented also. So all of these stages really takes a lot of effort, and a lot of it is, something that they don't teach you in law school. So you kind of have to figure that out on the job. But it's been an interesting journey. In a nutshell, that's what I do.
It's
Yeah.
really diverse, even if like just environmental law, environmental lawyer, but like from entire ecosystem to justice, I think it's pretty good. Mine after this is like you've done a degree in environmental law, like everybody does nowadays, constitutional law, criminal law, plain law degree. But then you shifted towards environmental issues, environmental justice. Like, what was there a specific moment or specific experience that led you into towards environmental issues towards this sector?
I mean, it was, I guess, a chain of events. Through my law school, I didn't really particularly have any interest in environmental law. I had a tilt towards human rights litigation, but it wasn't like, I was some really into environmental law. I didn't even do very well in my environmental law course in college. But I interned it at all kinds of places throughout law school. So I went to all the way from the district court in Pune to the Supreme Court to the High Court to criminal litigation, civil litigation, corporate litigation, to public policy think tanks. I was doing everything that I could get my hands on just to see what it is that I really enjoy doing. And I wasn't really having fun with most of it. But then I did an internship. I was lucky to get an internship at an environmental law chambers run by Advocate Asim Sarode, who was back then the president of the NGT Bar Association. So Advocate Sarode had a very interesting way of handling interns, or rather tutoring them. He would give you a chance to draft the case by yourself. And as an intern, that was like power that you're not really used to. That kind of empowerment is something that most lawyers will not afford a normal intern, especially on his first day. But Advocate Sarode was gracious enough to do that. I remember sitting there drafting. It was a case involving discharge of sewage into the Arabian Sea in Mumbai. And I remember just trying to figure out how to fight this issue. Seemed like such a worthy and valuable use of a law degree. And it felt like finally this is something that makes sense. And this is something that I feel is because the a degree in law is such a powerful tool if you really think about it. It's a sword, it's a shield. It can be used in so many ways to, afford people like meaningful outcomes. You know, you can really get stuff done with this degree, and I felt like this is finally a worthy use of such a powerful tool instead of just trying to make some money civil litigation or just trying to, I mean, I'm not trying to demean those branches of law. A lot of, in fact, all of my friends do that kind of law only from law school. Nobody else does environmental law. But for me, this just made sense. In that moment, on that first day of the internship, I was like, this is it now. Finally, law makes sense. And that was really the turning point. Of course, my upbringing, my time in law school, all of these were factors which led to me making that decision. But if you want that one aha eureka moment, that was it.
That's true. I think everybody needs that when they're for in their careers because that's where they'll be enjoying the work they're doing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
true.
absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
so when it comes to law, something I feel very distant, something that's difficult language, something that I'm not connected with usually. But like with the works that you said, I really feel that it has some power. Like we've also seen some environmental judgments by the court and everything. So how do you explain in simple terms the power of environmental law and how has it created the real action, the real impact in the country?
Many, many ways. I mean, there are so many sort of landmark judgments which have changed the face of how we govern the country. I mean, just for example, there's a case which has been ongoing since 1996, in which the Supreme Court must have passed thousands of orders, and one of their landmark orders in 1996, in fact, changed the way we look at what is a forest, because the government had come up with a law that all forests should be protected. In essence, I mean, I'm simplifying things, but in essence, the government came up with a law in 1980 saying that forests should be protected. But it turns out that most of the country had not defined what a forest even is. So is a what at what point do a patch of trees become a forest? Was something that there was no clarity on. The law was made, but now what do we call a forest? Because everyone who wants to make use of that land will say, hey, it's not a forest. And everyone who wants to protect it or has some interest in its continued existence as a forest will say that it is a forest. How do we determine this? That's where the court stepped in. The court said that everything that looks like a forest is a forest, you know and I mean, just that one line in essence broadened the scope so much that lakhs of square kilometers of land which was previously disputed came under the protection of this act. And the huge portion of what continue to remain as protected forests in the country is because of uh, that law. Of course, in 2023, an amendment was passed trying to alter this law, and in fact, this particular judgment was sought to be undone by an amendment in the law. But that's being challenged, in fact, and I've played my little part in trying to help that reach the Supreme Court also. But anyway, stuff like that, there are so many cases that one can really mention, but everything from protecting wetlands to protecting, like there was an order in 2017 which held that, as per a satellite imagery conducted by ISRO, wherever they had spotted basically blue areas signifying water, there were around 2 lakh such spots. And all of those spots automatically got the designation of a wetland, which meant that they had a greater degree of protection. So the Supreme Court and, of course, the NGT also, I can go on like this, were able to create sweeping change, in one order, 2 lakh wetlands were protected. In one order, lakhs of kilometers, square kilometers of forest were protected. These are not small things, and these wouldn't happen, without court order. So this is really the power. I mean, I could go on, but this is just sort of, little examples of what the court can do.
True, that's really true. Um, Okay, so you are an advocate. At the same time, you work in policy and research field. So, like, you have worked in the legal space as well as the policy space. So, like, how do you think that legal action and the policy reform can work together for creating stronger environmental governance for the country and creating more impact as such?
No, of course. I mean, law and policy are really just two sides of the same coin. I mean, uh, it's the law basically lays down how the policy should be framed. So you can't really have meaningful change unless it's a symbiotic change, in which case both really get stronger. More than, laws and policy, I feel in the country, what we really need is implementation of the existing laws and policies because there's a huge gap in implementation. We keep trying to think that a technocratic solution is going to create the kind of change we want to see, where we have a better law that comes in. I mean, sure, you can bring it. I'm not saying that there is no scope for amendment or amelioration in the existing law. There is definitely scope to make it better. But I think a bigger problem that the country is facing is implementation. So for that, we really need, if you trace it back, why are laws not getting implemented? It's because the administration doesn't prioritize environmental regulation as much as they should. Why don't the administration prioritize environmental regulation? It's because it's not as important a factor for the people, because the people determine the issues. Those issues reach the politician, the government. That politician conveys it to the administration who does the work. So that's really the chain, and that's how environmental regulation is still not given the kind of due importance it deserves, is because uh, it's not as important a factor for the people yet. Once that changes, it all follows from there.
Okay, so I get it, but like, how is it that we can change it amongst the people, amongst the public?
How do we change it among the people? Just doing stuff like this, Magdi. I think that's what you have to do. You just have to keep talking about it, keep trying to mainstream it more and more, keep trying to, have greater awareness, it just has to become, what can you say, indispensable part of your life, the environment or how you look at it. Your relationship with nature has to become something everybody thinks of. I mean, we get quite intimidated by that goal कि अरे everybody कहाँ सुधरेंगे सब types. But I feel like, even if a significant amount of people, and when I say significant, as an absolute number, in a relative number, it's only about, say, 5-10% of the population have to really, change the way they look at this. Historically, all the data that's there about, successful mass movements in the world have never involved, like, say, 50-60% of the population. It was always 5-10, maybe even less than that. People who just got up and raised their voice consistently and, purposefully. And that created the change. So that's what we need. So conversations like these, this is very much part of what is the solution, as per me, as per my understanding. Yeah.
Like, this reminds me that you also host a podcast, Unearthed, right? So, like,
Yeah.
that's also the similar thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That the idea with that was exactly this, that just greater conversation will lead to greater results. And there are so many wonderful stories, that are to be told. So many people doing amazing work that gives you so much hope. So I want to talk about those. I haven't had time, actually, to be very honest, to shoot another podcast in some time. So, but I will at some point, when I manage to get my legal practice completely sort of under control. It's still rising right now, so there's still so many new challenges I face. Once that's a little under control, then I'm definitely going to revisit the podcast because I had so much fun doing it. But yeah.
Yeah, I think, okay. So, like, most of the viewers of our podcast as well are young professionals who want to work in climate space and environmental sector. So, okay, so people who have the environmental law degree or might not have, what is there a way in which we can enter this career? Could you suggest some simple track or pipeline through which one wants to make a career in the environmental law or policy space?
So I mean, I would say that there are many ways for young advocates to get involved, because there is, of course, the National Green Tribunal where I primarily practice, which has really, simplified the procedural aspects, which has simplified a lot of procedure in terms of filing a case, getting it listed, arguing it, and that is something, the procedure is something that really even junior lawyers will find, especially junior lawyers rather, will find very intimidating. So the National Green Tribunal simplifies a lot of the procedures that you would have in, say, the district court or even the high court. And that therefore is a great avenue that, young lawyers can exercise. I think not enough young lawyers really look at the National Green Tribunal. It doesn't have to be the only court that you practice in, but it definitely should be one court that as a young lawyer you can look at, especially given, as I was saying, the procedural sort of relaxations that are afforded, and more importantly, the work that you'd be doing. It's important work. More important, I mean, otherwise, there's of course the high court that you can go to. It really depends, it's how you look at it, what you call environmental law. So there are matters involving land acquisition, that are tried before a separate land acquisition tribunal or a land acquisition officer. So those also technically one can say is within the ambit of environment, but you know, it won't be tried in an environmental court. It'll be before the land acquisition authority. Or you can even consumer affairs. Some can say consumer matters are also environmental, especially if they involve greenwashing, but those will be tried at the consumer court. So you can file criminal complaints against people who are doing, say, illegal tree felling. So then that would be criminal law. So it really, there's environmental law per se intersects in many fields. There are many tribunals or many forums where one could say you are practicing environmental law. But I guess if I had to give just one thing that you should really look at is NGT litigation. Look at the National Green Tribunal. It's a wonderful forum. It's a path-breaking innovation. In fact, very, very few countries, if I recall correctly, only 3 countries in the world have dedicated environmental courts. I think it's Australia, New Zealand, and India. So it's something that we should really, really strengthen. And young lawyers, I think, have a great, great avenue to create meaningful change and yeah, add to their existing practice.
That's true. I think that would really work.
Uh-huh.
Similarly, what do you think? Any skill set or mindset do you think that would be required if you want to be in this space, in this sector? Is there any specific mindset or skills maybe we need?
I think I don't know about, what skills, especially different skills. I mean, it's basically you do what a lawyer does. So the same skills you'd really need. But you do need to be, I guess, a little more. You have to realize that change is something that takes time. So you can't have a savior complex when getting into it. You're not doing this to save the world. You're doing this because this is what makes sense to you. And change is something that is the result of many factors that are much beyond your control. So you need to be able to detach yourself, especially if you are someone who's really passionate about the environment. In that case, you have to detach yourself because a lot of these outcomes are outside of your hands. So the ability to detach yourselves from each case allows you durability, because otherwise you'll feel really, really stressed, like I did in the initial parts of my career, because every case felt so important, and they are still very important. But you can't, for a lawyer, you go and you try to do your best job, but the outcome is ultimately out of your hands, and it's a subjective thing. There are many senior lawyers who will say that, uh, you go to a different judge, you'll get a different result. So the same case can be tried. So a lot of it is outside of your hands. And if a lawyer feels like every case is his case, like he has taken every case, it becomes very, very difficult because you carry a lot of 20, 30 cases if you're dealing with. That's a lot of, stress to have. So you need the ability to realize that change will happen slowly, that you are a small part of a much bigger system, and you're doing your bit, and that's really all you can do. So that's what you should do. That's one skill I think you should have. And also, I guess you need to be a little delusional also. You need to feel like, that this is a fight worth fighting for, I think. And a lot of people feel like there's no point in it. But I think you have to be like, no, there is something here. I can actually create meaningful change also. Although it'll be small, but it will be meaningful. And that's perhaps maybe the most that any person can do. Anyway, I don't know if there's a straightforward answer to this. No special skills per se. Just do what a lawyer does and kind of, yeah, detach yourself from the results.
That's true. I think there are certain careers, if we given like are too much into it, it will be like
Yeah,
no way is good for neither for us nor for the results as well. That is
yeah,
true.
it's exhausting.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like one thing that I want to know since you've been in this space for a long time. So like if you could change one thing, the way India approaches environmental protection, whether it is in policy or law or in terms of the mindset either of the lawmakers or the judiciary, what would you be? What would you suggest?
If one thing I could change in the people or in the judiciary.
Anything like not in people but in judiciary or governance space from the people side, maybe we can do for communications or conversations, but from
Yeah.
the government side, from the things that are going on in the country.
I mean, really, I feel like we need to bring back criminalization of environmental offenses. I don't know. Recently, only in the past couple of years, a lot of them have been decriminalized, and environmental regulation is taken to be just sort of a rubber stamp, a formality that you kind of have to do because you have to. So it's getting watered down instead of becoming more stringent. So in our understanding that environmental regulation are a hurdle to development, that's I think a completely misplaced ideology that needs to change. Our administration, our government looks at the environment as something that has to be overcome to get to this goal of development. But that's completely missing the point because you cannot have sustainable growth in a meaningful way without handling the environment. I feel even this idea that sustainable development as a concept should be talked about but not understood. Like every government will mention sustainable development, but I don't know if they really know what that means because they don't. Nothing is really sustainable in the way that a lot of these laws are being diluted. That's not going to lead to environmental conservation. That's going to lead to more violations. So I don't know why they're insistent on diluting the laws. If anything, they should be strengthened or they should be let be as they are and implemented. So we have a warped sense of sustainable development that needs to be changed. And we have to realize that there can be no economic progress without ecological conservation. It's just not possible because every year we are seeing environmental devastation worth thousands of crores. Just one flood comes, like say in a city in Himachal, and 3,000 crores damage is done. One flood comes in Kerala, 10,000 crore damage is done. Who pays for this damage? The environment is very much an economic question, and the economy is very much an ecological question. So we can't really, you know, what can you say, decouple the two. They're very much intertwined, and we need to start thinking of it. So that is something that the administration and the government needs to understand.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we have come to the end of this of our discussions. So before we wrap up, a quick rapid fire round.
Oh my God.
So
Okay.
one book, yeah, let me start. One book, podcast, or a mentor who influenced your journey.
I mean, my father really influenced my journey quite a lot. He's an organic farmer himself, and he is someone who has been involved with nature in a very real way for many years. Both my parents, my mom was a lawyer, so both of them really shaped the person I am. And yeah, if there's one, there's not no one. Both of them are my mentors and people who, because of whom I am what I am. Huh.
Okay, so one environmental case or campaign that inspired you.
The Chipko movement from the 1970s in Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, led by Sundarlal Bahuguna and a bunch of women, Adivasi women, really changed the way I understand conservation and your relationship with nature. And the Narmada Bachao Andolan, led by Medha Patkar, really changed the way I understand movements. And one book I have to mention is called Everybody Loves a Good Drought by P. Sainath. Anybody who wants to understand India and development has to read this book. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay,
Okay.
so here we
That's
come
it.
to the end of the discussion. Do you have any final words to the young change makers, young early career professionals who want to enter the space? Any final word of advice that you could?
What advice could I give you here? I guess the only thing that I can say is that understand that you are an integral and necessary part of what comprises nature. Nature is not outside of us, it is us. So what we are trying to do here is trying to help ourselves, just trying to sustain our own lives, trying to live a better life. So that's why you should get into this field, is because you're creating a better world for yourselves, for your loved ones, for everyone that you care and have cared about or will care about will be benefited by your actions. So that's if that's not enough of an incentive to get into this field, then I don't know what will be. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that
Okay,
was good.
thank you so much, Maitreya, for joining in.